now, we'll call the meeting order. Michelle, for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Chris Holt.
Here.
Chris Iden.
Here.
Ken Charneski.
Here.
Kelly Coyle.
Here.
Aaron Mishka.
Here.
Craig Mortensen.
Here.
Al Zedek is absent and excused.
All right, item number 2, we have a closed session later on in the agenda. Item number 3, is public comment.
I'm good.
First up is Bernie Franklin.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Bernie Kramer, 2150 East State Highway 153, Dept. I just want to address this ambulance thing a little bit. I sure wish to make it a lot simpler and break down just exactly what we pay Riverside separate, and I'll get the EMS budget mixed in with it, causing confusion and incorrect numbers on the end. And here, as an example, this year $52,976, and then next year we go 2%, 54, and a 2% increase on ambulance only, not on the other budgeted stuff. And then we got here 26 contract with Riverside, and lo and behold, $153,942.50 current EMS budget and contract costs. Well, is it that difficult? We've been going over this from day one. Put the right numbers down, and the cost per capita. I mean, lo and behold, after a year's time, you've got to look at such stuff like this. It is stuff, that's what it is. And then they have your proposed Kronenwetter ambulance budget, operating costs, so on, debt. And then you shift over, it says revenue grant funding and $308,000. You know, when we started out with this stuff, on the first proposal here from the fire chief for 26, our projected revenue was $200,000, and that's about what Riverside takes in. In fact, for this year, they're budgeted for $195,000 revenue from calls to Kronenwetter. And I just can't understand why that can't be clarified. So then I go over here to this here Appendix A. Here we got EMS budget, $153,000. Of course, the ambulance is in there at $65,000. We never paid Riverside $65,000. We never will. $22,000 for the calls. Well, this last year didn't even get to $20,000. We didn't get to 400 calls, so we had 190 some thousand dollars. I mean, 19,000 some dollars. So I mean, it sure is difficult to get good information. And you know, you expect the average person, I'm not above average, but the average person to try to scratch this out. And then here we go with the so-called budget for the ambulance budget. Well, lo and behold, here we go again. $279,000. And here we got, with no retirement, we got retirement on Kronenwetter, and the EMS is down there, I mean, with Rothschild, but when it comes back to their regular budget, just for the ambulance for Kronenwetter, that's not in there.
Hey, Bernie, can you wrap it up? It's been 3 minutes.
Half a minute?
It's been 3 minutes. Can you get to your point to wrap it up, please?
Oh, I was just getting a good start. Okay. But anyhow, I sure wish we could get some good clarity with this ambulance cost and revenue thing, so a person could understand it. Thank you.
Next up is Guy Friedel.
Okay, Guy Friedel, 2240 Ruby Drive. You know, I've been thinking, who are the legitimate interests? Who has legitimate interests with regards to the ambulance proposal? What's the structure? Has the structure been right? Okay. Now, the citizens have an interest. They have an interest in getting quality service, and they've got an interest in getting it at the best cost. I don't have a problem with the officers of the fire department advocating for an ambulance service, especially on the operational side. I served as the chairperson of the Police and Fire Commission for years. I was involved, that commission was involved in starting our police department, and it also began the transition from a more volunteer department to a more professional department. So I don't want anybody criticizing me. I've paid my dues. But I don't have any real disagreement with the officers of the department advocating for it. But what's happening is when the citizens raise a point, who settles that? What has to be the board. Now the board has the responsibility to provide budgeting for the entire village, including the fire department, including any ambulance service or EMS services. The Police and Fire Commission is supposed to kind of supervise the discipline within the fire department. I think you've got to think about all of these things. Now, it seems to me that what keeps happening is we go in one direction, and then we go in a different direction, and then we weave back and forth, and there's no logical progression that I'm seeing. And I think a good part of it has to do with the structure of how things are done. There should be a deep dive into the finances. And we keep going over and over and over the same points. So I'm just saying I think that the structure could be improved. And I think the way it's structured now, if a citizen makes a point questioning the numbers provided by the fire department, is that wrong? No. The citizens have a legitimate right to question. And it seems like we're at odds with the fire department. We're not at odds. We're just saying what we think is right. And there's different points of view within the citizenry. So those are just some thoughts I have for the board to consider. Thank you.
All right. There's public comment. Item number 4, we have reports from staff and vendors. We'll start with the OC, the Interim Finance Director report.
Thank you. What I did is I had a report included in the board packet for you all, just to give you a progress update since my last report, which is on February 10. This is through March 21st. You can see the activities that's been going on in the finance department in the county area here. Our main focus is getting ready for the auditors who will be here the week of April 21st through April 25th. So we can get the books closed for 2024, and then we can have all of the financial numbers for last year. Now I was not here during that time, obviously, so it's taking me a little time to go through things. But I'm going ahead and we'll go through as much as a fine-tooth comb as I usually do, because that's my background, is being an auditor for a number of years anyway. And then as the financial reports roll out to you, I have kind of a schedule there at the bottom that says, how I will distribute them. So after the auditors are here that week, then for the second board meeting in April, my plan would be to distribute January, February of 2025 first, because I need to make sure the auditors have everything to me that they want to make any adjustments of any sort for 2024. So we'll go back and then I'll release those internal financial statements to you at the first board meeting in May. And then March and April 2025 would be distributed to you at the second board meeting in May. So that over the course of those 3 back-to-back-to-back board meetings, you'll have everything here with where we are at presently and also current through April of 2025. And then I also distributed tonight, because there was a question that came into the president here over the weekend of just, where are we with cash and investments and things. And what I did is because I started at the end of January, I'm 4 months behind with where things were last left off that I inherited. So, I have to go back to October, November, December. And so I'm trying to get 6 months done in 3 months time. So, but I can do it, and I got help. So we'll get there. But what I thought at least to distribute to answer the question that President Vole had today was just a report to you where we are at the end of February. These are per the bank statements. They're not reconciled. The tax savings account and the checking account will be distributed across the different funds. This is what the bank statement shows. This is not necessarily what our books will show yet until I have to go back and everything rolls forward. So once I get October, November, December, and then January, February, March, everything will roll forward. So I don't want to release those yet until I'm through that, especially for the auditors. But at least you can kind of see where we have got our funds distributed between Incredible Bank. We have a couple of accounts there. We have the local government investment pool, which that I know that's clear, that those are all done. That's all through February, that matches the books. And then we have small credit union balances there. And then finally, one of them that my predecessor had not disclosed on a cash and investment report is we have a debt service reserve for the TID district, for TID number 1. We have lease revenue bonds that we have issued, and so you have to have a certain amount for the last principal and interest payment always on hand, always available, and that is sitting at Associated Bank. So that was something that I just happened to notice. I'm like, well, this one has been missing, so I'm disclosing fully transparent to you all. So our bank balance at the end of February per the bank statements is roughly around $15.8 million. As you can see, dispersed between the different financial institutions there. Otherwise, are there any other questions for me tonight at this time? Otherwise, you'll be hearing a lot of them come end of April rolling forward.
Yeah, I got a question. The general checking is $11 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is that ours, or does some of that have to be distributed yet, like to the county and school district?
That would be our monies, because on February 20th, we would have issued the checks to the county, the technical college, and the school district. So those are already out of those balances.
Okay.
Those have been dispersed out already. Those had to come out already before the end of the month.
Okay, so this is all clear.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
do we expect more in July?
We would get, like we had gotten just a payment today for the lottery credit. So that is something that we have received. And then in August, actually after the July tax collection season is done, after July 31st, the county treasurer has, I think, until the 15th of August to disperse the remaining balance owed to us. And then the technical college school district, they will get all their share directly from the county treasurer, not from us. We don't have to cut a check at all to those institutions. But we'll get that it's not second half, it's probably maybe about, I think there's about 3% of the tax collection that's still out there. So that's the remaining piece that we will get, and that'll add to that balance. But these balances, especially in the checking account, would not reflect any checks that are still outstanding that we've issued. Because this is the bank statement amount, not our book amount yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I will get there. Just give me a little extra couple weeks here, and we'll get everything to you.
Right.
Okay? Any other questions?
All right, so no other questions. Thanks, John. Nice job.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Move on to item D, Community Development Director report.
I don't have really much to add, but I'll take any questions you have in my report.
Any questions?
Yeah, I did have one. What are garage condos?
Basically what they are is somebody puts up like a larger storage unit that allows businesses to come into. And our ordinance doesn't really cover it right now. We have personal storage units you can have, and then we have just commercial uses. They get complicated because each one of them would need their own conditional use permit. And I'm working with 2 different individuals on who want to have garage condos.
But they're all individually owned, they're all just like a
Yeah.
condo, like a cabin.
Okay.
So it'd be like maybe 15 on a lot. So it'd be condos, so individual people would own the garage. And then the rest, it would be like common area and stuff, like a typical condo association. Anything else for Pete? All right, thanks, Pete. All right, moving on then to Public Works.
All right, thank you. In addition to my report, I just want to add that our community survey is up on our website until April 13th. It's just a survey that we have with the outdoor rec plan, just questions about the parks, outdoor rec ideas that people might have in the village. So go on the website, it's up, like I said, until April 13th to submit. It takes literally 3 minutes and you're done. Another thing I want to add is I sent an email out to all people in the village here, department heads, President Vol, just stating that there's going to be a public forum basically for the construction work that's going to go on the interstate in front of us here. It's pretty much, they're going to be resurfacing a few lanes and the on and off ramps. So it will affect Kronenwetter a little bit with their on and off ramps with Maple Ridge. I sent it off to fire and police so you guys are aware with your emergency services. Dates are still tentative to change, so once we have that public forum, I'll release everything, we'll put it on our website so the community knows the dates that there'll be a little inconvenience. They're trying to do all that stuff at night, but obviously sometimes it can go a little bit later in the day depending on weather. Detours will come through Kronenwetter as well, and they'll shut down Maple Ridge for maybe a day at night, not quite sure yet. But once everything's finalized by the state and the county, I'll get everything out for the residents.
Anything else, Greg? Great, thanks, Greg. Absolutely. All right, so we've had a request to move up item O. Anybody have a problem with moving that up? I was going to put it under G, so it'd be F, G, O. Anybody have a problem with that? All right, so we'll go on to item F. Engineering Services Agreement with Roth Professional Solutions.
All right, thank you. For this one, since we have money left over with the GO bond that we took out last fall, for the TID 2 projects, it actually comes out to be about $1.7 million we have available. John and I sat down this afternoon and talked about that. So we can use the money for a different project that is within or close to the TID number 2 itself here. So I brought up to the APC committee the other day about having Roth Engineering do a survey and draw some plans up for Jamnaras and Flanner Road. I have a few pictures in my packet there about the condition of the road. It's falling apart. There's severe drainage issues. So with the additional funds, we are looking to have Roth Engineering do a survey of it and draw plans, like I say, for a change order for the contractor who's going to do the Kronenwetter Drive project, which would need to get village board approval when the time comes anyways. But in order for the engineering service to draw the plans up, it would be, was it $45,000 for him to do the work? And like I said, we have $1.7 million available, part of that bonding that we took out last fall. So just to have Roth Engineer do that, and we would tie that in with the Kronenwetter Drive project itself, and then we would present the change order to the board, and you guys would vote on it as you see fit at that time. But this is just for the engineering cost of.
Does this money have to be spent out of that bond in a given time?
3 years.
3 years?
3 years, yes.
Within 3 years there. But the contractor that's going to do the Kronenwetter Drive wouldn't do this project for the cost that he gave us for Kronenwetter Drive. Yeah.
Those roads look like they could use some work. But there has been an issue going on for a couple of years now about this railroad study and the issues of safety and all that. You know, one of the solutions was to put the road from West Nelson north up to Prohaska's property, and from there, he had said in the past he would provide a way through that. I seem to remember that road, to build it, price was $300,000-$400,000 or something. Now that's within the TID buffer zone too. Could that be done?
We could absolutely look at that. If we can, I can talk to Roth and get his opinion on that, what it would take to build it. If it is the price that you say, we could potentially do both things.
I seem to remember a number like that.
Sure.
But that would, I think, make a lot of people happy on that side of the railroad tracks.
Sure. We could absolutely look at that.
So I guess I'd be interested in that.
Anything related to this issue? Any questions or comments related to Flanner and Jamrose Road project?
I guess if you could run that project along with the other two, the engineering costs, and that would probably be a little less too.
Absolutely. Do one package deal.
What do you guys want to do?
I guess I would make the motion to approve the engineering on these two roads and include a review and what, cost estimate or something on that other road.
That other road as well.
It would be a new road going north from West Nelson, north to Prohaska's property, and eventually it would go up to Happy Hollow to bypass the train blockage.
Was there sewer water along that? I
On
know that's going to be talked about there.
West Nelson, in that area, there's a lift station that was actually designed for the sewer and water to come from that area, from Prohaska's area to the north. It's all downhill, and it was designed in anticipation of that being developed.
Gravity system.
Right.
Is there a second?
Did you put any costs in that motion?
No cost. As far as the engineering study, no, I didn't have the cost, but whatever.
It's 45,000.
45.
45 for Jamrose and
The
Flanner,
the other one.
and then whatever it would be for
Right.
additional.
I think we're talking about two separate issues here. So,
Right.
Well, we're
the agenda
talking
item
about the
is for
spare money
Jamrose
here.
and Flanner. I think if you want that brought back, that needs to come back at a future date. Right today, we're talking about Jamrose and Flanner.
Sure.
Well,
That's the agenda.
I thought we were talking about the extra 1.9 million that we have left over from the bonds.
Right, but let's,
Well, what's
the
not there
agenda
after
item is
that
what it is.
could be used for some other project.
What's that?
Whatever money's left over after this project we're talking about could be used for some other projects.
Well,
I would certainly see, have the conversation with them, get an idea, and then bring it back.
And put our agenda next month.
But for purposes of this agenda item, we're talking about Jamrose and Flanner.
Yeah, that could be a future agenda item.
I can bring back next meeting just to have a separate cost estimate, just like what we have for this.
Yeah, I think we need to have that conversation with Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah, however you guys want to do it.
All right, so we didn't get a second. Any other action?
Are we still on the original motion?
Yeah.
No, we didn't get a second.
And the motion was, Jennifer, you want to reread that motion if you could?
Yes. To approve engineering on Jam Rose and Planner to include a review and cost estimate on the new road that would start on West Nelson to Prohaska property to Happy Hollow to bypass the train blockage.
Make a different motion.
Well, I guess at this point, I was looking at least getting a price estimate from it.
Right.
And if they say like, oh, it's $2 million, well then, we don't worry about it. But if it comes in, if they can give an estimate or an opinion on it, along with this study, then we'll know where we're at, whether or not to even bring it up again.
Hey Greg, if this project gets approved, we still have some money to play with, right, like 900,000-ish?
We should, yeah, because we were thinking, obviously we could just scale it back if we want to do an additional road. If it's going to be $900,000 for Jam Rose and Planner, then we would have additional money to do that. And if the road costs would be what you say they would, then we could potentially do it all, like you're saying there. But like you're saying, I could get a cost estimate for the additional road and bring that back next meeting, since it's still, everything's in the initial phases here. We could potentially have the contractor do everything all at once if that's the way the board wants to go.
Because that road's only like 300 and some feet, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, we would still have money.
Do we want to table this until Greg comes back with that information?
Well, we're hoping to get a decision for Jam Rose and Planner tonight, just so we can start working on that and get that rolling right away. But if you want to come back with the additional services for the next meeting, we can do that.
That's what I'm saying, is we approve what you're asking, and you begin the conversation with Rob,
And bring it back next
and then bring that back for that part. It isn't like the money, it isn't like they're going to do this tomorrow.
Right.
So there'll be some time for that conversation to take place. For tonight, we need to worry about what the agenda item is, and that's the Jam Rose and Planner that you're asking for.
Right.
We handle it separately.
Well, it's just that it's been kind of kicked down the road so many times.
Sure.
There was supposed to be a study on it, and then there was no money for it, and at least if we include it tonight, at least there's some action on it to, doesn't have to be designed, it's just an estimate on cost.
Well, I'm not saying that you can't have a conversation.
Yeah.
But you need to have the conversation, get an idea, is it just gonna be an easy add-on to this 45,000 engineering assessment? Or is it going to be significantly more? I'd like to know that before, otherwise we're coming back and they're gonna, we're gonna be asking for another, significantly more amount. So let's just, if we address this, he knows he has his marching orders, and he'll bring that back to us.
So Lee, I'll ask you a parliamentarian question. So in the past, there have been considerations of seconds by discussion, and then I've also heard that you're not allowed to second the motion by discussion. So what's the correct procedure?
I haven't heard a second here tonight.
What can you do? Are you allowed to do a second by discussion, or does it have to be an official second by the? Because in the past, I've heard, when somebody starts talking about it, then it's like, well, that was the motion was seconded by discussion.
There's sort of a sliding scale in formality. It's usually related closely to the size of the body. I would think we're better off in this village having actual seconds. So if there's not a second, then the motion is dead. We should see if there's any others.
So we've had a motion, we've had a lot of discussion about the item.
Technically,
There's yet to
you
be
want a second before there's discussion even, that's why.
So having no second, I'm going to declare that one as dead. Are there any other additional motions on this item?
Make a motion to accept the engineering service agreement with Roth Professional Solutions for $45,000 for the Jam Roads and Flanner Road project engineering assessment.
Second.
Got a motion by Kelly, second by Aaron to approve the $45,000 contract with Roth Professional Solutions for Jam Roads and Flanner Road services. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Chris Gold.
Yes.
Chris Iden.
Yes.
Ken Troneski.
Yes.
Kelly Coyle.
Yes.
Aaron Mishka.
Yes.
Craig Mortensen.
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0. All right, thanks, Ray. Moving on, item G, budgeting for new dump truck voucher. I guess this is yours too.
So I have Brad Jacobson here with us. He's been kind of taking the lead on this. So we brought this forth to APC, or excuse me, yeah, it was APC, and we're looking at getting a new dump truck. So it's going to take a little over a year for the truck to arrive. So that's why we're working on it now. And there's things that have come up with tariffs and price changes and things like that. So we're trying to get this through as quick as we can before everything like that takes place. So what APC decided for us is to pay for the truck chassis here in 2025 with the available funds that we have available for the capital equipment fund, and then pay for the body in 2026, because we don't have enough for everything right now in that fund, and we don't need to pay for everything right now. So pretty much we can pay for the chassis right now in 25, and then when everything gets completed with the body, we can pay for it in 26 when that fund gets replenished in 26. And in the packet there, I have all the prices. The chassis will be about $148,000, and the body will be about $167,000 for a total of $315,000. Brad was busy getting pricing from a bunch of different companies, and you had a conversation with Chris Bull while I was off on Thursday and Friday. So, Brad, you want to come up and kind of speak to that, since I wasn't privy to that conversation, so I'll let you guys talk about that.
Yes, there's been a lot of different numbers going around here. So it started off with basically in 2026, looking at replacing one of our trucks, and talking with our vendors, he had mentioned that there's going to be a $30,000 emission coming in 2026. So we started to look at how we're going to maybe try to pull this off for 2025 and pay for it then to get the truck ordered. So we did find, John did notice we had $267,000 left in our equipment replacement funds. So we had money there to do that. So then I was directed after the APC to go and get hard numbers for the trucks, 3 quotes here I got. About a week and a half ago, with the whole tariff situation that came about, it was put on there, there's a possible $3,500 tariff charge that's going to be coming upon if the truck was not ordered last week. So we started getting pricing really quick here. So there's kind of some, I don't know if you got my spreadsheet, it was included in the packet there. There's 3 different manufacturers that I got prices from. And you see a possible surcharge I have on there. So right now the Freightliner's the lowest with the $135,700. And the possible surcharge is that if we ordered by last week Friday, that was up to $3,500, so it could potentially lead to $139,200, but that's not for sure. So Peterbilt actually built theirs in already, so you see there's no surcharge because they already had put theirs in there. And then the Western Star, we went past the date, so there could be up to potentially $25,000 surcharge. And Peterbilt also had 30 units on hand that they had pre-approved, so that's why there is no potential $25,000 surcharge there. So right now, basically, like tonight is the Freightliner charge. Truck Country did go out and place the order for the truck that we did spec. We're not tied to it, but they did go ahead and do that on Friday for us, potentially save us that $25,000 surcharge that could come. So the truck is essentially ordered, but again, there's no pressure to sign tonight. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Mark is here from Truck Country. Any more questions about tariffs and how that could potentially work? Any more questions on my end of things, or would you like to, any questions from Mark?
Does the body be here also, or is it just the chassis?
Just the chassis, so that's the other situation. Also discovered that the body will not order their equipment or our equipment until the truck is physically here. So about 3 months to get the truck, and then it's about a year to get the dump box and the plow equipment. So we would have the truck for 2026, but it takes about 18 months to get the whole process going on.
I'll move that we approve this financing plan as Greg has presented it. pay cash out of the equipment fund, capital equipment fund.
Second.
Got a motion by Ken, second by Kelly to approve the purchase of the vehicle with option, scenario number 1 is outlined in Greg's report. Any other discussion? Yeah, so Brad and Greg, so just to be clear, this truck was not scheduled to be bought this year. It was supposed to be bought next year. We moved it ahead because of the potential emission issues of 30 grand approximately. And now it's even more prevalent because of the tariffs.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
So doing it right now, we could potentially save
Almost
$50,000
$50,000, yeah.
or more.
Are we gonna be a problem with replacement time for the truck replacing?
No, this scenario will actually be right on time with it. So
Okay.
it should be done potentially in July of July of 26. So it'll be in service, that's what we have hopes for. So, but it's right in line where we have hoped.
And that was the original service date, right? It was 26.
Correct, yeah. So these are hard numbers. As far as tonight, the contract for the Freightliner is in the packet there, which will essentially need to be signed tonight if you want to move forward with it.
All right, hearing no other discussion, then call roll, please.
Chris Gold.
Yes.
Chris Iden.
Yes.
Ken Troneski.
Yes.
Kelly Coyle.
Yes.
Alex Vedvik. Aaron Mishka.
Yes.
Craig Mortensen.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. All right, since we moved up item O, we're going to move on into the Von Briesen report. Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, John.
Okay, well, the reason I brought this forward, there's 3 different aspects that I see to this, and one is the nature of the report itself. One is how much our lawyer was involved with it, and the big thing that I want to focus on is the $65,000 that was spent, but it was never authorized by anyone to go ahead with this. Now, I agree with Mr. Droney sent a letter out, says we shouldn't really talk about how this affects the current litigation, and that's fine. That's probably a good idea. And the nature of the report itself, I'm not about to go into, whether it was biased or whatever. But the big issue here is to find out what actually happened that caused this contract to be engaged with after the village board has specifically said not to engage a third party. And any attempts to, get public records on this have not been too successful. I did get a copy of the actual contract, which is page 140. And the scope of services, as you can see, is extremely vague, and it doesn't say anything about, any particular complaint. So it's just very vague. And even the basic things I was asking for, a copy of the complaint and who exactly is the client. I assume the village board is the client, but I never even got that answer. So that was, attorney-client privilege apparently. So there's a lot going on here that we need to look into, and I think basically the bottom line, if the village board is the client, which it should be if the village is supposed to be paying for this, I think it'd be a good idea for the board at least to see all the documentation that went into creating this $65,000 expenditure.
So I think to address one of your questions, and I think I think I've heard before, is the board was the client. There wasn't any one individual that was the client. And I think that's always how it's been portrayed to the village, is that the board is the client.
Well, if the board's the client, board should see the information, right?
The village is the client,
Sorry, yeah, the village is the client.
to be more precise.
And as far as your other question about the contract or how did it get started, I mean, that's a question for Leonard. Leonard inquired about it, Leonard signed it, Leonard entered into the agreement. And as you put into your report, the motion was to not select independent counsel and direct the administrator to work to determine if it was a complaint, and then from there, apply the handbook as appropriate. And that's exactly what he did. Now, if you want any other additional details about those activities, then we'll have to get Leonard in here and talk to Leonard about how he arrived and what he arrived at and why he did what he did. So I don't have those answers. I don't know if anybody else has those answers. That's why Leonard did what he did.
Well, that's why I wanted to get any emails or anything related to that, because we could not have engaged in this type of a project without some kind of documentation.
Well, he evidently felt that it was a valid complaint. And then he used the verbiage of section 2.2 in the handbook, which said if it's a bona fide complaint, work with a third party firm.
Well, that's partially true. You said 2.2?
Yeah.
Well, that's talking about harassment in the workplace.
Yeah, that's, so he's evidently figured out. He
I have,
evidently understood it to be a complaint about harassment after he talked with the individual. And the motion says, find out if it's a complaint and then utilize the handbook. So that's what he did.
well, the complaint that we looked at, or so-called complaint, on January 31st, we decided was not a complaint. It was, you thought it, I guess some of us thought it was just blowing off steam.
Well, that's right.
Whatever.
And then we told Leonard to determine if it was real or not.
Well, but Leonard was already engaging with Von Driesen before that meeting and telling him it was a harassment complaint.
I think he was trying to get estimates about cost.
Well, he said was proceeding under 2.2. And in my report in the packet, it has the definition of harassment.
Actually, that only has a partial definition of harassment. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, harassment involves unwelcome conduct, often repeated, that is intended to annoy, disturb, or threaten someone, and can be verbal, physical, or through other means such as written. To take that a step further, harassment covers a wide range of behaviors and is not exclusive to protected classes. So therefore, our employee handbook is incorrect because we only reference protected classes. But harassment goes well beyond that.
Well, we're going by the employee handbook, which is what the motion said. We're not going by some federal thing that we don't know what the conditions or the parameters of that definition even are about. So if we're going by the handbook, which is what the motion was, that's what defines it. And it doesn't make sense to call in a third party every time somebody says, oh, I didn't like the way they looked at me, or I wasn't happy about that, So it makes sense that if it's limited, the way it is in this handbook, that would make sense to get a third party. Anything else would be a simple complaint, which is what we talked about at the closed session about, first off, notifying the person who's complained about to get the other side of the story. And I have it in the packet too, the explanation of the whole process. And none of that was followed. And 2.2 also refers to HR 002, problem resolution. That wasn't done. And then farther down on page 8, it says, every reported incident of employee harassment will be thoroughly investigated by a third party selected by the village board. Village board never heard anything about it. We didn't select the third party. We really didn't even know. I didn't know what was going on until I started seeing in the check register that they were paying, first check was for $5,000. And I knew, that's getting beyond any authority that the administrator had to go on without board approval. So this whole thing was not, what they call the up and up here. And that's why I think we need to look into it, because it's a lot of money. It wasn't authorized according to the handbook or according to our purchasing policy or any of that. And I'd like to get some answers on it.
Any comment?
Yeah, a couple. We discussed, as I said again in my note, we discussed on many occasions, including that evening, that HR policies are not really applicable to elected officials. They're just not employees, so they couldn't work. So we can just pretty much stop talking about HR policies in this case, since the target of it wasn't an employee. You have to look at the agenda that evening to recognize the motion that was made. The agenda that evening said hire an outside law firm or whatever it was. I don't have the exact words, but it was hire an outside investigator. So that's why that motion coming out of that meeting was, okay, we're not doing that, which was the thing on the agenda, and we're giving Leonard instructions to move forward. That's that combination motion at the end. So that's why it's structured that way. It is a combination motion, which maybe isn't the best. It was two different things. We're not hiring someone tonight, like the agenda said, but we're going to tell Leonard to move forward, if there's anything to move forward. And that's how it was left. I don't know, I was here, Leonard had statuses on his administrator report, and we had how many painful amendments to the budget. Painful in the sense of every time we did it, it was kind of painful. So I don't know if everyone is completely surprised, you were completely surprised, 5 times or whatever, and voted to move forward. So I don't know. I don't think there's a magic button. Last January we could push and say it never happened. This is why a couple minutes ago I said we should have verbal seconds, because it seems like we're always arguing backwards here about what we did or didn't do before. Okay, so here's another occasion of that. But it's something that did get affirmed, repeatedly over time until it was done. As far as the definition of harassment, it is not limited to protected classes. There's a first sentence which mentions a bunch of protected classes. I don't believe that's everything in the current statute, state statute. Then there's an entirely second sentence, and it says we will not tolerate harassing conduct that affects job benefits and interferes unreasonably with an employee's work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. That's much more broader than protected class only. It also says we prohibit retaliation in section 2.2 for anyone who files. It also says unprofessional or disrespectful behavior even if not rising to the level of harassment, will not be tolerated. So there's a lot in there besides just protected class harassment. It's clearly not limited to that. Maybe that's enough for now.
Well, okay, the last sentence about, even if it doesn't rise to the level of harassment, will not be tolerated. Well, if it's not harassment, then it doesn't qualify for a third-party investigation either. And if the policies don't apply to, you know, if the HR policies only apply to employees, then why is a trustee, you know, under the microscope here from some complaint that he's never even seen a copy of the complaint? And the thing I wanted to also mention was that as far as harassment, according to this definition, there was no mention in the so-called complaint that the board, you know, rejected as not an actual complaint. And there's no indication of any of this in the report itself. So that's somewhat of a side issue, because it doesn't matter if there was you know, actual harassment ever, we still have to go through the process of getting RFPs, EPC and the village board approving a contract. None of that was done. And I mean, Mr. Troney here, on February 13th, 2024, billed for review of personnel complaint, engagement letter with investigator, and response letter. Reply to administrator with edits to response letter. So the attorney, you know, reviewed it. It was just 2 weeks after we said don't engage a third party. So I'm not sure what, you know, why we didn't hear about that, or why it wasn't followed up with the actual procedure to, you know, to approve a third party if necessary. I know if it would have come to the board, I certainly would have approved the regular HR 009 process, because that's open and that involves sworn testimony. This process Von Briesen followed is there's no sworn testimony. It's, you know, hearsay, and so again, we're getting into the problems with the report itself. That's not my focus here. My focus is the $65,000 was never, by any stretch that I can think of, a legitimate expenditure, because it never came to the board or committee, and that's what I want to look into. And I don't see the reason why these emails need to be secret, because half of them are not, probably, possibly not even attorney-client privilege. You know, if they're between, you know, Ludi and the lawyer, our lawyer, or whatever, I don't see how else we're going to find out, or at least have a chance of finding out. And if they are, let's just say they are secret and confidential, as a board, that's part of our authority to be able to see them and try to determine if there's anything in there that can lead us to how this contract came about. Because I find it hard to believe that Ludi be that bold to just go ahead and sign a contract without basically, informing anyone else or without someone saying, yeah, go ahead.
Well, the thing is, he did.
Well, he did sign it.
Yeah.
All right, since I was mentioned, that time entry that was read, that sounds like Leonard asked me to review the retainer agreement, which you've got in your materials. I think it was just as this what attorney's retainer looks like these days, and yeah, it pretty much was. So I think that was it as far as that goes. I would just say this for future reference, guys. Just for future reference. If ever there's an occasion where you, as a village, hire an outside third-party investigator, this is kind of what it's going to seem like when that happens. It's not run through all the normal processes. That's why you get an independent person to do it independently. It's not under the daily management of the village board like everything else, like even I am. That's partly why I couldn't do it. You get that outside person. So just for future reference, if you ever, because I've heard that suggested more times than I remember around here, we don't usually do it, but if you do hire an outside third-party investigator, it is a totally different process, and it's not going to look like normal village things. Just to be clear.
Well, where would you find that in our ordinances or state statute or any kind of regulation? Somebody still has to pay for it, and the money, if there was a fund that said, here's $50,000 for secret investigations or something like that where they could dip into, sure, but we have a process for spending our money, and that wasn't followed. Doesn't matter what it was spent on.
He never signed an agreement for $60,000. He signed a retainer agreement for an independent investigator with the hourly rates shown in the agreement. It's not his or her fault, or his fault, I guess it would be Ann Henneman, so I guess it would be her fault. It's not her fault that the facts took her to the number it ended up at. We kept approving it as a board. Certainly we could have, if you look at the addendum that's on that agreement, we could have canceled it at any time. It wouldn't have been a wise decision on our part to cancel it, but we could have. But once it was underway, we knew the hourly rate, but the facts took the investigation where it went. We were hoping maybe it'd be a $200 thing or a $5,000 thing, but the facts took it where it went. That's the deal. Nobody signed an agreement for $60,000. That's just where the facts went.
Well, we just approved an engineering thing, for $45,000. That's the reason for it to come to the board. If Mr. Ludi wasn't thinking enough to put a cap on it, he asked for a cap. What's an idea of what's it's going to run? And I don't know that he ever got it because I don't have access to the emails. And that's another argument for why you bring it to a committee and to the board to spend this kind of money. And as far as the budget amendments, every single one of those budget amendments, came up for more legal fees. We always had an invoice or two waiting to be paid. It was always overspent, and basically, I voted against them because I knew it wasn't right to continue this thing. But as far as another board member, I could see where they'd say, well, we got a bill, we got to pay it, so let's just do the amendment. So I wouldn't necessarily say budget amendments are basically an approval of a contract that none of us saw. I forgot when I first saw that contract, but must have been June or something like that. It certainly was not provided to the board.
Now, Lee, yeah, you did have to write a report in response to this agenda item. I see we all got that.
Sure.
So this regional report is still costing us money because we're still paying for your services to handle this on the
We're
agenda.
still rehashing what's already done.
Well, we should move forward. I move to take no action, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All right, we got a motion, a second. We have a motion by Aaron and a second by Kelly to take no action. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I got a few comments on that. I would say any vote to take no action on looking into it, this is basically a vote to condone or cover up misappropriation of public funds. Because it's just flat out misappropriation if it's spent on something that's never been, never gone through the channels and never approved. So I mean, you guys, vote the way you want, but we got $65,000 that was spent, without the input of the public or the board or even a committee. And if you want, if you're comfortable with that, then take no action. I at least, I'd like to be able to look into what should be public documents to see what, if anything, that we can find in those documents that gives us a clue as to who is responsible, whether it is just Ludi or anyone else involved. It's a lot of money just to turn the blind eye to.
Well, there's been services rendered correctly. There's also been billing and I believe a payment on it, correct? So, where do we go?
Well, first off, we find out who's responsible and see what, to cover this up is not it's not the right thing to do, and it's not a good look to the public. That's their money.
Well, I don't know if I'd categorize this as cover.
Well,
Until you get statements from Leonard or Camford, you can keep talking in circles all you want to. I mean, those are the two guys that were in charge of the whole thing. But yet you don't have any comments from them, so until you get that information.
Well, that's why I'd like to start with checking the emails. That's the primary way of communication. Now, a lot of this stuff, may be by the phone, but email is also common. So if that at least is allowed to be examined, that's a starting point.
You know what I think would be a better use of the village's time? Following the recommended actions in the bond briefing report. Because as I reread this, you talk about a cover-up, you talk about all the terrible things that hypothetically in your mind could have happened. I guess I read, this is from the investigator. Charneski's conduct toward resigning and former employees was viewed as retaliatory and intimidating. Those interviewed confirmed that Charneski made statements and comments to negatively affect the reputation of current and former staff, and that his behavior deterred others from reporting and complaining about Charneski's behavior. Most interviewed also confirmed prospective and former employees stated that Charneski's conduct contributed to the reasons why individuals quit their village employment and why most prospective employees were told that they should not take a position with the village. That would be of more interest to me, is if we follow up this wonderful 2 pages of recommended actions from this report. Because if you really take the time and look objectively at the report, this is not a one-off. And you know, I want to point out one other thing that kind of bugged me in this, and that was you had an email exchange with Attorney Henneman, and you specifically said, Mr. Chernesky, that, where's it at here? Therefore, I'm writing to you on my own behalf as a courtesy to your inquiries and not as a representative of the village or as not a representative of the village. So I turned a page back, and that was sent from kchernesky@kronenwetter.org, so from your village email. So then, if I go into the Von Briesen report, there's an email exchange in which our former village clerk asked you if you were requesting information to then applicant Kemfer, if you were requesting the information as a member of the public or as an elected official. And your response, Bobby, it is through my village email address. So obviously it is as an official. So which way are you having it? Are you responding as a citizen, or are you responding as a village trustee? Because you're arguing both sides of the story there.
If you want to go into this whole report, we'll sit here all night. But to answer your question, she emailed me to my village email, and that email you're talking about is in the packet, so anyone can read it, and that explains, you know, what I just explained tonight, that this was never authorized. So I was responding to her, but not in a way that I wanted to incur any cost to the village by responding to her. Because there was no authority to engage her, and I wasn't about to participate in incurring more cost. So I said I did it on my own, just as a courtesy to reply to her inquiries, just like I said. I don't see what the issue, is there, other than a diversion from the problem we have with the $65,000. And as far as what you read about her recommendations are to have a process to deal with complaints, which we have and was totally ignored. HR 009 is a process that was ignored.
For employees, not trustees.
Well, okay, now we're talking both ways. If that's for employees,
That's why
then why was an elected official involved with any of this? Either it applies to everybody or it doesn't.
It's meant to
But if
protect
an
the employee.
employee has a complaint, doesn't matter who it's against, I don't think.
Well, I think
It should go through the process of contacting the person you're complaining about and saying, hey, what's your side of this? Maybe we can get this worked out.
The first paragraph of 2.2 in our employee handbook, harassment in the workplace. We do not tolerate harassment of our employees by anyone, including any supervisor, coworker, elected or appointed official, vendor, or customer.
Okay.
So therefore, this is there to protect the employee, not to protect the trustee.
So then you apply 2.2. If
For the
you're
employee,
reading
for the
from
employee's sake, not to the
2.2,
trustee.
you're trying to do it both ways. You're trying to include me, which it does, but then the rest will apply too, where the village board is supposed to select this third party, and all the other processes that are supposed to be followed.
Well, because this is so unclear, that's why we created the code of conduct. To make it a little
Well,
more clear.
okay, so what in the code of conduct would have prevented any of this?
It wouldn't have, prevented that. It just, from the outcome of the report, would have determined, whereas, you know, if it was an employee doing it, that would have been punishment up to and including termination. There's other sanctions for an elected official.
So the code of conduct basically doesn't even cover this. And as far as your other comments about retaliatory and stuff, don't forget, everybody here except Craig was accused of retaliation by the same person that Hanneman is talking about here. So it's like everybody's retaliating whenever they do something she didn't like.
Well, that's why at the bottom of the attorney's letter, it says cautious what you talk about. Because there still could be pending litigation related to all of that.
That was a good time to bring that up. But the point is, the main point I'm bringing up is this expenditure without any authority. I don't know how many times I gotta say that, but.
I'll just go right back to what I said earlier. You need to get comments in from Leonard. Because he's the one that initiated, and he's the one that entered the contract.
You basically skipped town, right? I mean, you couldn't get any response from him.
I can't get a response.
Pete Camphor could not get a response from him.
He didn't, but Pete didn't skip town, I understand, he's still around. But he's not calling me back.
Well, okay, but
Okay,
it
well,
still leaves it. We shouldn't be sitting in a dark, under this shroud of secrecy over these emails, just because we can't get a hold of Leonard.
I guess I'm missing what emails are we talking about? Because if you're talking about the statements that employees or former employees gave to the attorney, no, you're not getting those. Those are protected. Those are protected to protect those people.
That's not even. No.
It's
more the administrative process here.
Oh no, I saw it on your blog. How you had said that you suspect that President Bull had something to do with it. You have a whole conspiracy webbed out on there. I get that.
Well, that's fine. I mean, somebody had to approve the payments.
We did. Every time we did a budget amendment, we effectively were approving the payment after the fact. You can cut it any way you want, but we as the board, we never stopped the investigation, and we approved the payments, whether it was after we got the billing statement or not, we approved it.
That's no substitute for the proper process.
Give a comment.
a few last. So it's a good reminder just now, it was meant as a consulting policy recommendation document. Ultimately, that's what it was for. And following those recommendations, we did a couple of them soon thereafter, if you recall. Certainly not all, 2 pages of things that are listed there. And I guess we kind of just stopped, maybe it's because we didn't have an administrator anymore, but we stopped working on any of those suggestions. That was the main goal of everything. Besides the fact, and I know when that night we talked about it again, some people were like, I have no idea what's going on. What could it be that everyone leaves? We can't hire people. So partly it was to investigate, what is the issue? It did that. As far as the budget amendments, I remember early on there was some that were, I think some people didn't realize they were supposed to be keeping the board up to date enough on that. But that did get rectified, and then they were in front. We were usually down to
The last $100.
yeah, the end of it, like, don't call me again if you don't approve more, that's how it works. But later on, those amendments were more timely. As far as requests, now I haven't looked through that content either. Because again, it's an outside thing, so I didn't do it. And I had the Von Briesen attorneys actually helped with that records request response, because then I didn't need to look through it to determine that. They can, and they do these responses all the time. So they helped author that, and that's why. That I didn't have to look at it. So I haven't gone through for redaction or anything like that. So my impression is, as someone who hasn't looked at it, that it's mostly report content. Requests have been made for Leonard's emails and such, I think many times over, and that's why you have, you know, these copies of the documents like the contract. That's why you have those things. Yeah, I guess they didn't make a lot of references. How I take it, because these requests have been made several times. All I can say is, as a summation, and it's not a pretty thing to say, but that night when we decided to tell Leonard to move forward, it seems like everyone was on the same page. That could be. If some people had no idea what we were doing, that might be. That's not great. I don't know if we went too fast or didn't get enough explanation then. I think it was asked early on, how do you know what an outside investigation looks like? Just experience, okay? I've heard of these things. I know Von Briesen's around all the time. I tried to find you, if you remember, some other attorney to do it, because I knew that they're expensive. I failed to get any takers. That's kind of how I assume Leonard ended up with them, because they do these kind of things all the time, all over the state. They're expensive, I knew that. I did what I could, and I couldn't find anyone. But yeah, I don't know, I guess that's all I can say. I mean, I was there, I knew what was going on. If not everyone did, I couldn't tell at the time. I guess that's what I would say.
Well, and I guess I'll just point out one more thing on page 146. I have a copy from a different Von Briesen report. And if you notice, they explain who engaged them, what they engaged them for, and what the purpose was. And this thing we got back doesn't have any of that. And typically, when they're done, they're signed. This one was not signed. And they also include the documentation for whatever they have. Now, in this case, she's talking about emails, and these emails were cherry-picked, some of them edited, where the other parts or corresponding emails would have changed her, kind of invalidated her conclusions. This report is 90%, well, not 90, at least half her opinion and assumptions rather than based on any facts. And the evidence itself there is no evidence of any retaliation at all. Just like when you guys got accused of retaliation, that was not valid. But the words are thrown around, and for some reason, Hanneman just accepted everything at face value without a true investigation. So you guys vote the way you want, but I just thought this thing, should have come to light and be looked into before too many of the original people here leave the board.
Any other discussion? Excuse me. We have a motion and a second to take no action. Hearing no other discussion, go ahead and call the roll.
Chris Paul,
Yes.
Chris Iden,
Abstain.
Ken Troneski,
No.
Kelly Coyle,
Yes.
Aaron Mishka,
Yes.
Craig Mortensen.
Abstain.
Motion carried 3-1 to 2 abstentions. All right, we're gonna move on now to item H, ambulance subcommittee report. And Lee, if you wanna take off your board and for me to do so.
Thanks for getting me in.
Thanks for coming.
Hi, my name is Pam Kajak. I've been a resident for 12 and a half years. I'm a former urgent care nurse. I was on the Code Blue team at Marshfield Clinic, Wausau. I really believe that we need to protect our neighbors, okay? If we look at the vision statement and the mission statement,
Pam,
it says that we move on,
you need
okay?
to stay in the microphone so it can pick you
Okay.
up. Sorry.
That we'll move on. I've heard some people say that they haven't heard anything from the ambulance committee. Well, we've been busy working. We've had a couple visitors, a couple of comments, and they're not very receptive. But what I'm trying to tell you today is that we need an ambulance team. We need people that are trained and ready. We need to have our own transportation. One question we need to ask ourselves, why do we feel so important to protect property? Okay, we have an engine truck, we have an aerial engine, we have a rescue truck, we have one brush truck and trailer, a UTV, a water truck, and a pickup. In 2024, there were 87 fire calls, okay? In 2024, there were 404 EMS calls. We protect possessions more than we protect our people. We have a wonderful, effective fire department. Let's complete the picture and staff the rescue ambulance squad for the people of Kronenwetter who deserve it. Our neighborhoods are changing. I live on Glendalen Road North. It's a 2-block street. We have 5 new residents. 5 people have moved into different houses. They all have young children. The dynamics of Kronenwetter is changing. We have to be aware of that. Little kids on bikes, accidents happen. And when we have a rescue squad, when we have an ambulance that can get there, not have to do the assessment as our fine staff does. They do the assessment, then they call an ambulance, they tell them what's going on, and there's a delay. And if Riverside is busy on another call, there's even a bigger delay. I've had the ambulance come to my house. My neighbor fell and broke a leg, and the response by our first responders was wonderful. The care was so sincere and so intense. But the ambulance was delayed about a half an hour, okay? Now, if it was somebody doing CPR for a half an hour, that would be a horrible, horrible thing. Everybody would be tired, and the person would probably have passed. So, as far as how our staffing would be different than other departments, SAFER wants all their employees to be fire trained and EMS trained, okay? We will go with just EMS or just firefighters. You can look at the staffing. Do you have the copy, this copy with the staffing on it?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Our EMTs and AEMT, and what they can do, an advanced EMT can place an airway. They can start an intravenous drip. They can give some medications. Our emergency medical response currently have 24 drills a year, 2 hours each time to provide education and training. It's all well worth it. The mutual aid thing, well, if Riverside is busy, then we are delayed. Then we get Safer. If Safer's busy, and then we get Wausau. Why compromise our people when we don't compromise firefighting at all? Do I have any questions that I can try to answer?
How many times has Safer or Wausau had to respond to a call that Riverside couldn't?
I don't have that information.
So,
I believe we're at 4 for this year.
4 for the year.
That's 4 too many. Our firefighters are all volunteer, and they get called up and they are there, and now what if we didn't have fire trucks? Would that be silly? Well, we don't have an ambulance. That's even sillier.
What happened to putting this out on a referendum?
Well, you should ask.
And we tried.
So if you remember, back in November, Alex asked about it, and I said there was no money for the attorney. I said in December, there would be money. So as I understood it, the committee was supposed to write a question, have the attorney review it, so that it met the criteria for a referendum question, and then it would move forward.
But then we asked for the attorney to come and talk with us so that we could get the verbiage correct.
Well, if you asked, it never got to me. Because I told Alex you could have the attorney in December.
I guess where I'm at on this is, yeah, there's a very vocal part of the community who is against even considering this. But I don't think the decision, excuse me, should be left up to the 7 people sitting up here. I think it needs to go out to a referendum.
Yep.
You need to put it out and
Yeah, informative meetings.
you know, you're putting forward great information. I guess the only thing that jumps out at me is obviously the ambulance cost and supply cost. I hope there's some great grants out there that could help offset that.
Well, we're not gonna get rich with an ambulance, okay? But
But I'm saying as far as purchasing goes, you know, but really, I think that you guys can talk about this till you're blue in the face. Opponents can talk to it till they're blue in the face. It needs to go out to referendum. It needs to go out to the public and let the public vote. And I just don't see.
I would agree.
It's not a decision that should be made here. And obviously, there's two very, you know, people are passionate both ways, and, you know, that's where it needs to go.
We should have had the attorney stay, and then you can at least maybe talk to him about it and ask, you could have asked him a question, how long would it take to maybe do that? Can you still get a question maybe ready for November? If there's a November, like, is there a November election this year? So it'll be next April.
Well,
And I think that we could have a lot of informative meetings.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would disagree. That's exactly our job, is to make decisions like this based on facts. Now, we had a presentation that was 90-some% opinion. That's fine. You know, you got your opinion, you think we need an ambulance, think it doesn't make sense not to have one, well, that's fine, that's the opinion. But this has always been about practicality and what's best, you know, for the people. Riverside has given great service by almost anyone's standard. And I wouldn't criticize them at all. And the price is outstanding. the numbers in this report. First off, the agenda item says what? Ambulance Subcommittee report. So where did this report come from? Because I don't see the ambulance committee having created this report. Who came up with this report?
We came up with the report.
Who?
Pat Kildun was there. Alex was there. Jennifer was there to help us write it up.
So basically it was a subcommittee.
That was that workshop that we had.
But it was,
No, it wasn't a subcommittee because it was never posted as a meeting. It was a few of you who got together apparently.
I believe it wasn't posted, correct?
It was never posted, no. And that I assumed was because there was not a quorum, or it was just a few of you getting together. But the point is, I don't believe the subcommittee ever saw this, let alone voted to send it to the board. I mean, a few people getting together and making a report is fine, but if you're going to do it as a committee, the committee should have been involved, voted on it. That's how everything comes to the board.
There was not enough people in our last meeting.
Well, then they didn't vote on it, apparently.
But all these decisions, all these things were from our meetings, if you want to look at the minutes.
You're saying that this information you're putting forward is a summarization of all the meetings you've had?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you for helping me clarify.
Oh, no problem.
I was just getting to that point myself.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about the numbers, but I know these numbers are far off from what was presented in June. Bernie had mentioned the original said something like $200,000 of income plus 10 from the 2% dues and 10 from, I think, a grant or something. So 220,000. Now we're up to 308 according to your numbers. And same thing with expenses as far as the current budget compared to how it would be if we had an ambulance. We just increased the budget like $24,000 for EMS, and that was in anticipation of an ambulance, because we hired, Teresa hired eight new people, and she also increased the training budget from like 800, in the past 2 years, from 800 to 4,000 for training. So obviously that's a big increase in training, and that we would expect that is a cost to get them familiar or geared up potentially for an ambulance. So that extra 24,000, it's not fair to. It is in the EMS budget, but it was. We talked about that at the budget meeting. That would be. That must be in anticipation towards the ambulance. And at that time, I had pointed out how we should not include that until the ambulance is actually, approved, because now if we cut that back and we don't have an ambulance service and we cut that budget back, we're going to get penalized from the state. So.
Yeah, comment, Teresa.
Yep, so we upped the EMS budget for training and wages because our call volume continues to increase. Our Police and Fire Commission has hired firefighters and EMTs. We have to put money forth to train them. If we hire them, we have to train them. So that means our wages and our training budget increases, regardless of whether we have an ambulance or not. If these individuals are hired, we have to spend the money to train them. We can't continue to run 2 or 3 first responders in the village of Kronenwetter for 400 plus calls. We have to have more first responders here. If that's what we're going to run, we have to have more staff. Which, unfortunately, that EMS budget probably will continue to increase, at least for wages, because we're going to have to pay them. If we run these calls, we have to pay them.
And you pay them anyway. If it was coming from our own ambulance, they'd already be on the ambulance, okay? We wouldn't be double dipping for a call. You understand what I'm saying? That when you have Riverside coming to the call and you have our people going to the call, that's double dipping for one call, okay?
So you're saying if we have our own ambulance service, we're not going to have first responders?
Oh, we will have first
Well,
responders.
then
But
they would show up,
but they
and the
can't-
ambulance would show up.
But then the ambulance would show up with Riverside, okay? But our own people can transport.
The
But
first responder wages are.
it's not double
established.
dipping then. Because right now, the EMS gets there, Riverside gets there, Riverside takes the patient, and EMS is
Or
then
not.
done. Then they're back down to standby, right? They're not being paid continually while Riverside is taking the ambulance.
But Riverside's being paid.
In
Yeah,
some
right.
cases, we are
But they're
actually.
not being paid very much compared to what our costs are. That's the bottom line here is we're looking at, first off, we're looking at a big loss, regardless of what, you show $50,000 savings. I don't see that as accurate. But potentially, you've got a lot of standby people here at $4 and $5 an hour. And on call at the station.
No, there's no on-call. They don't have to be at the
Well,
station.
what's on site? What does on site mean?
Well, that's when they have to cover for the ambulance being gone. When our ambulance is gone, and the responder and the EMT in the EMTA, then another set of responders will come in to cover their absence from the station. Am I correct?
Let me help you with that. So
Okay.
from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., they will be staffed fully. From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., they will be on call. It's very similar to a lot of ambulance services across the state of Wisconsin, how they operate, including Mosinee.
Well, what does on site mean?
They stay here at the station or within so many minutes of the
So
station.
they're on call at the station, like
Correct.
I had understood it to mean that.
Either on site here or within so many minutes of the station.
And we had discussed that earlier in the year about,
But there will, let me finish.
was that even realistic?
Let me finish explaining. So there will also be a first responder on call as well. So like right now, if I'm sitting at home and I'm on call, the pager goes off, I go directly to the home. That's going to continue. But we would actually have somebody on an on-call status doing that. So that there's guaranteed to have 3 people responding to every call.
Okay.
Okay? I go directly to the scene. I start care even before the ambulance gets there. So if the call is 2 blocks from my home, obviously I'm meeting the ambulance no matter where it's coming from. If it's out on 153, I may not meet them, but then I show up and become that third person of the ambulance crew. We have experienced so many times over the last 2 weeks, I'll say, where they've needed a third person and our first responders become the driver, so we are actually paying them additional hours beyond the actual call because they are still working.
Okay, but that's the same whether
So our
Kronenwetter
wages are
has
going to
a
continue to
2-person
increase.
crew on the ambulance, or if
They come with a
Riverside
2-person
has a two-person crew, you're still using the first responder as the third person. So that doesn't change.
Any other questions?
How firm are you on this grant money?
The $37,000 we received last week, Joe, from the state of Wisconsin. That's part of the funding assistance program, and we will continue to receive that. It's based on the number of residents in our village, so it's based on per capita. As our per capita increase, as our residents increase, the amount we receive from the state will increase.
What's that grant for?
It's the funding assistance program. It's for EMS. They just opened it up this year for EMRs. This is the first year we were able to apply, and we received $37,000 some odd dollars.
So we get that now?
We will get that every year.
So it doesn't matter if we have an ambulance or not?
Correct.
We're still getting that money?
There will be some of it that we may not be able to spend if we don't have an ambulance service, because it can only be used for certain criteria.
Like
15%
certain drugs and stuff like that?
Certain
supplies?
equipment, correct. 15% can be used. 15% can be utilized for throwaways, like some of the bandages, gloves, things like that. And the rest of it can't be.
And, have you found any grants that help pay wages?
I have not looked, because you need to have a plan in place. In order to apply for some of these grants, you actually have to have a plan. And we do not have a plan.
So how many of our first responders do you think would say want to school for paramedic?
For paramedic?
Yeah.
That I can't answer. We've lost a number of first responders in this village to other agencies because they wanted to be a paramedic. But then they want to be on an ambulance, which we don't have, so I guess I can't answer that.
Just curious if there was interest.
There's always interest. We already
Sounds like there's interest.
Yeah, we have one paramedic already on staff, 2 nurses, which actually have a higher level than the paramedic. One of them is ACLS, if I'm not saying that right, accredited, so she already is ready for that. There are other nurses in the area that have inquired about being on the department, but we don't have an ambulance, so some of them don't. We lose a lot of people annually. At least 2 annually to other departments because they have an ambulance service. We pay them to go to school, pay for their schooling, and then they leave us. We don't have anything to keep them here. 2 of them are currently on Wausau Fire.
Any comment, John?
And
I had a question. Am I correct in my thinking that the ambulance subcommittee, which is effectively an ad hoc, that if it is not renewed by the new board, that it's going to go away at the end of April?
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I'm asking you not to do that. We can't educate, we can't educate people. We can't let the public know. I love that we pay so much for fire equipment, but we don't want to pay for an ambulance, okay? It doesn't make any sense to me. Yin and yang, it isn't. We have wonderful fire equipment, except we're lacking an ambulance. And it's all part of the same. Fire and rescue are together, hand in hand.
well, the other thing is, we don't have another fire department that could, I don't think, that could come and take care of things in our village as quick as ours can. But we do have an ambulance service that is
It wouldn't be as quick as
exceptionally
ours.
good. And
They might be.
exceptionally low cost.
Anything else?
Well, no,
Thank you for listening.
Well, 2 things. One, I hope that regardless of what happens, I hope the ambulance subcommittee is able to continue beyond the end of April, because I believe there may eventually be a time that, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, that there will be a need for a local ambulance. And secondly, I'm definitely a firm believer that it needs to go out to the people of our village to make that decision. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, man. All right, moving on into item I, Riverside ambulance contract review. It's really not a contract review either.
All right, I guess I could talk on that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, just saying that there was some stuff happened, I don't want to get into all the details because it's been well posted. I don't. Just saying that the Riverside Fire Chief has your list of concerns, and I talked with him, and he's very receptive, and he had nothing but good stuff, and he even said, yeah, with our past fire chief, there was a lot of indiscretions that he says can be solved. But he just told me, he goes, he doesn't really want to do anything until after the election.
If you recall at the subcommittee, Chris,
Yes.
I was very open with that I have been having conversation with Chief Briggs, and we have been working on some of the items that were of concern. That doesn't change the fact that these items should be added to the contract, not just to protect myself and my staff, but to protect our village residents.
And none of my intent took any away from that. It was
Okay.
literally getting in the list and say, let's work on it. Because, you know, obviously you heard everything on social media.
Oh, yes.
And the thing is that my intent, I let everybody aware that I was gonna just send it to there, because you even said that you're gonna be busy at the end of the month anyways. And I talked with Pat.
I literally have not had a night away
Yeah.
from this fire department in the last 2 weeks.
And
So,
literally
yes.
me just sending it to him was no mal on you.
No, but
It was-
it was against what the committee had voted on, so I'm concerned that why are we having committees make motions
It
and
was,
vote?
it was based off of some comments that were said at the committee, and then I got calls because of that. And basically Riverside's like, I don't wanna deal with the politics, we just care about safety. And here's a list, be done with it, so.
I met with Chief Briggs within the first 2 weeks of his hire to go over this very same list, along with some other items of complaints that we had received. And like I had said at the clip, he was working very diligently with me, getting some of these items corrected.
And like I say, I know committees are really for the board to review, and that's why I brought it up to the board under items of future agendas, and I've had absolutely nobody even said, no, Chris, don't do that. So I believe I was in the right, because it had nothing to really, it wasn't anything against you, it's just get this solved. It just made things faster, and it's, either way, the intent is actually the same.
I want you all to know, I mean, regardless of whether we have our own ambulance or not, do I think this village needs an ambulance? I do. Whether that happens or not, we have to protect ourselves as a village, not just you seven, not just us, but our residents, okay? And the items that I brought forward to the clip to add to the contract will help protect this village. There are things that happen every day on EMS calls that you guys know nothing about, and we are not protected. In the last 2 weeks, we have driven their ambulance 3 times. What
We
an
have.
act,
You're
but an
saying we have,
accident.
one of our
We
men.
have, my staff. There is nothing in this contract that protects them. If there is an accident, who is at fault? Who is paying for that?
I get it, in fact.
Us or them?
He really didn't object to anything. He goes, I'll have a
Correct.
full report after the election.
But I am taking some pretty big heat on Facebook for some of the items that I have asked to have put in the contract. And that should not be the case. I am not doing them for myself, I'm doing them for this village. You guys are not out there. None of you are out there. If you would like to, please put in an application. We would be more than happy to look at you. But I will tell you, the Police and Fire Commission does do a very thorough investigation of all applicants.
And I hope you know too, you've never seen anything, I've never said anything bad about the fire department, the police department, or ambulance. I mean, honestly, say something if you think I did, but I have not. It's been all.
I will leave it.
So, is this item just to?
It's just
Give us an update of where we are, what's coming then.
It was just to update that it'll be brought back at a later date after the election.
Anything else? You guys have anything? All right, we're gonna move on. Item J, resolution to appoint Garrett Linson to the CLIP committee. So when we had an open position on CLIP last month, one member resigned. Garrett, and actually when he originally applied, originally wanted a CLIP, but there wasn't any positions open available at the time. So when a position came open, he sent his application, expressed concern, or expressed interest, so.
These people are qualified.
Yeah, he's got a really good resume.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to recommend appointing Garrett to the CLIP committee.
I'll second it.
A motion by Chris, second by Craig, to appoint Garrett to the CLIP committee. Any further discussion? Hearing none, that's a resolution.
Chris Holt,
Yes.
Chris Iden,
Yes.
Ken Charneski.
Yes.
Kelly Coyle,
Yes.
Aaron Mishka.
Yes.
Craig Mortensen.
Yes.
All right, motion carried, 6-0. All right, moving on, item K, approval of the DNRMS 4 report.
So what we have here is an annual report based on our storm sewer system. Even though our storm sewer is very limited in the village, this still pertains to the ponds, outfalls, and other things that need to be inspected yearly. In the past couple of years, it's kind of been laxed a little bit, so I'm kind of resurrecting and putting together a pretty nice packet here. DNR here, I'll do that this evening, and it's due at the end of the month. I still have a few days, but I just want to get that off and get that going.
That's very good, there's a lot of information there, very informative.
A lot of stuff there.
So what responsibilities does she have?
I think you're talking about the next one. That'll be the next topic. This is just for the annual report that I submit.
This is the MS4.
Yeah, for the stormwater. Yeah,
Oh,
it's just
yeah,
to submit
okay.
the report.
Okay, I'm not paying attention at all.
I'll answer your question next.
Do you need a motion on that to approve that?
He does.
Well,
I will make a motion.
Second. Okay, we got a motion by Craig, second by Chris, to approve the MS4 report as presented, resolution number 2025-2. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Chris Holt,
Yes.
Chris Iden.
Yes.
Ken Charneski.
Yes.
Kelly Coyle,
Yes.
Aaron Mishka.
Yes.
Craig Mortensen.
Yes.
All right, motion carried, 6-0. All right, item L, authorize Jan Boyer to be the authorized representative for the Wisconsin DNR on behalf of the village.
Okay, so what responsibilities would Jennifer have?
so basically
Little
what
to none.
what her responsibility is I will submit everything to DNR. This is pretty much for the recycling, because we get money for the recycling for having a recycling program. They just need to have a backup to me who submits it for like the finance. I would have John as it, but they need to have a full-time employee. Since we don't have a village administrator, can't put that. The village president will be outgoing here in a couple months, so I want to have somebody who's an appointed position as a village clerk. So I can add a full-time finance director or village administrator as soon as we get that figured out, but in the time being, I have to get this submitted here in April. So I just need to have a person on there to like take care of the financial things, make sure, yes, we did receive it. She can say to the DNR, we received it. That's pretty much all we need, that she is authorized to say we received the money, because I have to submit the report. They keep the report and the financials, two separate people to make sure it got submitted.
I make a motion to approve the authorizing resolution for Jennifer Boyer to be the authorized representative for the Wisconsin DNR on behalf of the village of Kronenwetter.
Second.
Got a motion by Kelly, second by Aaron, to appoint Jennifer to be the contact person for the Wisconsin DNR on behalf of the village. Any further discussion? It's resolution 2025-3. All right, then call roll, please.
Chris Holt,
Yes.
Chris Iden.
Yes.
Ken Charneski.
Yes.
Kelly Coyle,
Yes.
Aaron Mishka.
Yes.
Craig Mortensen.
Yes.
All right, motion carried, 6-0. Moving on, item M, extend Friday closure of Municipal Center for administrative days until summer hours are in effect for beginning of Memorial Day.
Okay, so this seems to be going extended, you know, on and on.
Well,
Well, it's not on, this is the first extension they've asked for.
Well, we had it previously.
No, that was, I think that was, you talking about the summer hours last summer?
Yeah, that sounds, yeah, right.
'Cause that's different. Summer hours were just allowing the staff to work more through the week and be off half days on Fridays, whereas this.
Oh, yeah, right. That was
That
different, yeah.
approved by a resolution or policy or something, so that's reoccurring unless it gets changed.
well, since this came about, if you think about it, our head count in the building as far as staffing has not increased. We have the same head count that we had when this.
When they asked for it?
When they asked for it. So it isn't like the staffing situation has improved. No offense, John. But the 23 hours a week just aren't cutting
And
it.
we have a clerk now, but that's still the same person that we had, so.
Yeah.
And that's why the ABC went ahead and recommended the extension, because the head count still has not increased.
Yeah, so we've got the same number of people, just,
Because the planning tech fell through, so we ended up not hiring that person. Because that was somebody who was supposed to be hired a couple weeks ago. That fell through.
It is extremely helpful to have that Friday.
Is there any phone answered on Friday?
Some people do.
My dad still rings.
Yeah, well,
I
I'm
still
sure,
answer,
I
yeah.
just,
Yep, I still talk to people.
It's hard not to.
It's up to the individual. I mean, they are, you know, part of it being is to not interact with the public, but if somebody calls to answer the phone, that's fine. You know, they still do so.
well,
I've got an emergency or something like that, it needs to be taken care of.
yeah.
I know a lot of it is to help the front office staff. They're trying to catch up on things for the week. The people aren't walking up and distracting them, which totally understand, absolutely.
Yeah, you're
But
right.
if somebody
It's
calls,
generally the walk up.
right, if somebody calls me, emails me, obviously I'm at my desk, I answer my phone. I do everything normally, so this really doesn't affect me, it's more for the front office staff.
I move to extend the Friday closures of the municipal center for administrative dates until summer hours are in effect, which is May 27th.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A motion by Aaron, second by Chris to extend the Friday closure until summer hours take effect on May 27th. Any further discussion? Now, that's not to say if we get a full staff between now and Memorial Day, that this couldn't be revoked, right?
Well,
This isn't.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, if we, increase the head count, certainly that changes everything. But, in the short term, even if you increase it, Friday can be training day without interruption, so.
We're just basically extending that other month and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this original Friday closure went until May.
After the
April
first
15th.
election.
End of
Or
April.
after that, yeah.
It was in April, so it's only a month. It's only a month really, I guess, because it wasn't the end of April anyway.
So then once summer hours comes, that's when they close for half of Friday?
Yeah.
Is that what summer hours are?
Because you guys work longer through the
Yeah,
week.
it's 7:30 to 4, or 7 to 4:30 during the week, and then 7 to 11.
It was extra hour per day, Monday to Thursday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Still open 40 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still here for
40 hours, yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item number N, TDS 2025 sponsorship contract. So this item, I was looking at it again over the weekend, and the attorney pointed out too, the termination clause is a little sketchy. It doesn't, there is no termination at will for the village. It's basically, you can only terminate for cause. So if we have no cause, TDS could actually be our partner for perpetuity, by the way this says.
Pretty one-sided, yeah, I've read it too.
Yeah, so I'm going to recommend we send this back to ABC so that we can reach out to TDS and see if they'll modify this, or maybe we need to find another vendor.
Okay.
Maybe like Bud Tussle or somebody.
Okay, well, I mean, they've been a pretty good partner the last 2 years, but I understand the contract.
Or
I'm just saying-
maybe we just can put a stipulation that this is just a 1-year contract maybe or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'd be fine.
I assumed it was. That's
Oh,
why.
yeah,
Yeah, but
definitely
this is a annual, not automatically renewed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They've been very easy to work for, and like if we cancel an event,
yeah,
we just reschedule.
yeah, but as far as a sponsorship partner, they've been great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would recommend we send it back.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Need a motion on that, or just resending it back?
Oh, does anybody have a problem with that? We don't have a problem that we can take a motion for it. All right, the recommendation is just send it back to the PBC. So make sure so Jenna, you can tell that to Sarah tomorrow. We can talk about
Yeah.
ours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I can tell Melanie whatever you guys want, and she will work with us.
All right, so now we're all the way down to item 6, consent agenda. There are 2 items, both board meeting minutes. Any questions, comments of those? I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Well, hang on a second, let me.
I mean, you want, all right, then we'll take one at a time. Item P, November 25th, 24 minutes. Questions or comments?
Nope. I'm good.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to approve the revised November 25th, 2024 village board meetings as presented.
Second.
And a motion by Chris, second by Kelly, to approve the November 25th meeting minutes as, the revised minutes as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item number Q, March 10th minutes. Questions, comments?
Okay. I make a motion to approve the March 10th village board minutes as presented.
I'll second. Kelly made a motion, I made a second to approve the March 10th minutes as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, item number 7, previous minutes from committees and commissions, February 17th planning commission minutes. Questions or comments? All right, we'll pick for those minutes. Item 7S, January 20th minutes from planning commission. Questions, comments? Hearing none, thank you for those minutes. We go to item number 8, consideration of motion to convene in a closed session pursuant to WSStat 9351C for consideration of employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or responsibility, to it goes current compensation.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
The motion by Chris, second by Kelly, to convene in closed session. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll, please.
Chris Vold.
Yes.
Chris Iden.
Yes.
Ken Charnesi.
Yes.
Kelly Coyle.
Yes.
Aaron Mishka.
Yes.
All right, motion carried. Motion carried 6-0 in closed session.
All right.